Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood at attention in the briefing room at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California. The morning sun streamed through the windows, but the atmosphere inside was anything but warm. "You've got to be kidding me," muttered Master Chief Randall Briggs, a barrel-chested man with 23 years of service etched into every line of his weathered face. He didn't bother lowering his voice. "They're sending us a girl fresh out of Bud S. What's next? Participation trophies." Sarah kept her eyes forward, her jaw tight. This wasn't the first time she'd heard comments like this, and it wouldn't be the last. She'd graduated third in her SEAL class, but to men like Briggs that didn't matter. All he saw was someone who didn't fit his idea of what a warrior should look like. Commander Paul Hawkins, the team leader, shot Briggs a warning look before addressing Sarah. "Lieutenant Chen, welcome to SEAL Team 7. I'm sure you're aware that you're breaking new ground here." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I'm here to do my job, sir." "We'll see about that," Briggs muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. The other team members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked curious, others skeptical. Only one man met her eyes with something resembling respect: Petty Officer Marcus Webb, the team's combat medic and K-9 handler. "Master Chief Briggs will be your direct supervisor during the integration period," Commander Hawkins continued. "You'll also be working closely with our K-9 unit. Petty Officer Webb, front and center." Marcus stepped forward, a lean man in his early 30s with kind eyes and a quiet demeanor that seemed out of place among the louder personalities in the room. Beside him sat the most magnificent dog Sarah had ever seen, a Belgian Malinois with alert, intelligent eyes and a coat that shimmered like copper in the sunlight. "This is Rex," Marcus said, his voice gentle but firm. "He's a combat tracker and patrol dog. 7 years old, 4 deployments, and he's saved more lives than anyone in this room. He's also my best friend." Sarah couldn't help but smile slightly. There was something about the way Marcus spoke about Rex that reminded her why she joined the service in the first place: the bond between warriors, the loyalty that transcended words. "Rex doesn't trust easily," Marcus continued, walking closer with the dog at his side. "But when he does, he's loyal to the end. I hope you'll earn that trust, Lieutenant." "I'll do my best," Sarah said, crouching down to Rex's level. She didn't reach out to pet him, respecting his space. The dog regarded her with those intelligent eyes, his head tilted slightly as if assessing her character. "Don't bother," Briggs interjected. "Rex has been trained by real warriors. He knows the difference." Sarah stood up, her face flushing but her composure intact. She'd learned long ago that responding to provocations only made things worse. Actions spoke louder than words, and she intended to prove herself through her work, not her arguments. The briefing continued with details about their upcoming training exercises. The team would be conducting a 2-week desert warfare simulation in the Mojave Desert, followed by maritime operations off the coast. Sarah listened intently, memorizing every detail, every protocol. After the briefing, as the team filed out, Marcus approached her. "Don't let Briggs get to you," he said quietly. "He's old school, but he's not a bad man. He just doesn't handle change well." "I appreciate that," Sarah replied, "but I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I'm here to serve." Marcus nodded, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Rex liked you, by the way. He usually growls at strangers. You've got a good energy about you." Sarah looked down at Rex, who was sitting calmly beside Marcus, watching her with those penetrating eyes. "He's beautiful. How long have you two been partners?" 5 years, Marcus said, and his whole face softened. "Found him at a training facility in Texas. He'd been returned twice because handlers said he was too stubborn, too independent. But I saw something different. I saw a dog who thought for himself, who wouldn't just follow orders blindly. That's exactly what you need in combat." "Sounds like you two were meant for each other," Sarah observed. "We were," Marcus agreed. "And he's gotten me out of more tight spots than I can count. In Kandahar, he detected an IED that our equipment missed, saved 12 lives that day. In Syria, he tracked down a high-value target through 3 miles of urban terrain. He's not just a dog, Lieutenant. He's a warrior." Sarah could hear the deep respect and love in Marcus's voice. It touched something in her, a reminder that even in this world of hard men and harder missions, there was still room for compassion and connection. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of Sarah's life, and she'd already endured more than most people could imagine. Every morning began at 4:30 with a brutal physical training session led by Master Chief Briggs, who seemed to take particular pleasure in pushing Sarah to her limits. "Come on, Lieutenant." He would bark as she completed her 100th push-up while the rest of the team had already finished. "My grandmother moves faster than you, and she's been dead for 10 years. The other team members watched these displays with a mixture of pity and amusement. Some started taking bets on how long she would last before requesting a transfer. Only Marcus remained consistently supportive, offering quiet words of encouragement when Briggs wasn't looking. During combat drills, Briggs paired Sarah with the least experienced team members, then criticized her leadership when things went wrong. During weapons training, he questioned her every decision, every tactical choice. It was a systematic campaign of undermining and humiliation, designed to break her spirit. But Sarah had been through worse, much worse. She'd grown up in a small town in Wyoming, the daughter of immigrants who'd worked 3 jobs to give her opportunities they'd never had. Her father had been a janitor at the local high school, her mother a seamstress. They taught her that dignity came from within, not from others' opinions. When she'd announced her intention to join the Navy, the guidance counselor had laughed. "Honey, girls like you don't become Navy SEALs. Why don't you consider nursing or teaching?" She'd joined anyway. When she'd applied for Bud-S training, her commanding officer had tried to dissuade her. "It's not about discrimination, Chen. It's about reality. The physical standards are the same for everyone, and frankly, I don't think you can make it." She'd made it. She'd endured the cold, the exhaustion, the hell week that broke 70% of candidates. She'd done it all while carrying the weight of everyone's low expectations. Now, in the Mojave Desert under the scorching sun, she was doing it again. The team was conducting a hostage rescue simulation in a mock village built in the middle of nowhere. Sarah's squad was assigned to breach the main compound while Marcus and Rex provided overwatch from a nearby ridge. "Remember," Briggs said during the pre-mission brief, his eyes fixed on Sarah, "this is about teamwork. If anyone goes rogue, if anyone tries to be a hero, people die. Understood, Lieutenant?" "Understood, Master Chief," Sarah replied evenly. The mission began at dusk. Sarah moved with her 4-man team through the desert terrain, their movements silent and coordinated. She'd studied the compound layout for hours, memorizing every entrance, every window, every potential line of fire. As they approached the target, Rex suddenly went rigid on the ridge above them. Sarah saw Marcus's hand signal enemy contact, northeast corner. She immediately adjusted their approach, directing her team to flank left instead of taking their planned route. "Negative," Briggs's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Stick to the plan, Lieutenant. That's an order." Sarah hesitated. Rex had detected something, and she trusted the dog's instincts, but disobeying a direct order would give Briggs exactly the ammunition he needed to label her as insubordinate. "Lieutenant, did you copy?" Briggs demanded. Sarah made her decision. "Master Chief, Rex has indicated enemy presence on our plan route. I'm adjusting to minimize casualties." "You're adjusting because you're scared," Briggs shot back. "Original route now." Sarah's team looked at her, waiting for her decision. She could see the uncertainty in their eyes. Should they follow her or Briggs? "We're flanking left," Sarah said firmly. "Move out." They executed the maneuver flawlessly, entering the compound from an unexpected angle. Within minutes, they'd secured all 4 hostages without firing a shot. The opposing force, positioned exactly where Rex had indicated, never saw them coming. Back at base camp, Sarah expected praise. Instead, she got a dressing down in front of the entire team. "You disobeyed a direct order," Briggs thundered, his face inches from hers. "I don't care if it worked out. I don't care if you rescued the president himself. You don't get to make those calls, Lieutenant. You're supposed to follow orders, not your feelings." "With respect, Master Chief, I followed the K-9's alert," Sarah replied, keeping her voice level. "Rex detected the threat and I acted on credible intelligence." "Rex is a dog," Briggs shouted. "A well-trained dog, but a dog nonetheless. You don't change mission parameters because a dog barked." "That's not fair, Master Chief," Marcus interjected, stepping forward. He rarely spoke up in these situations, but his protective instinct for Rex overrode his usual deference to rank. "Rex has never given a false alert. His accuracy rate is 98%. Lieutenant Chen made the right call. Briggs turned his fury on Marcus. I didn't ask for your opinion, petty officer. Stand down. Rex saved that mission, Marcus insisted, his voice quiet but firm. And Lieutenant Chen had the courage to trust him. That's what a good leader does. They listen to their assets even when it's uncomfortable. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Commander Hawkins, who'd been observing silently, finally spoke. Master Chief, Petty Officer Webb makes a valid point. The mission was successful with 0 casualties. I'd say that's a win. Briggs's jaw worked furiously, but he couldn't argue with the commander. Dismissed, he growled, turning away. As the team dispersed, Marcus approached Sarah. Rex was at his side, tail wagging slightly, a rare show of approval from the serious dog. Thank you for trusting him, Marcus said. Not many people would have gone against Briggs like that. I trusted my team, Sarah replied. And Rex is part of this team whether Briggs likes it or not. Rex sat down in front of Sarah and lifted his paw. It was such a human gesture that Sarah couldn't help but laugh. She shook his paw solemnly. Nice to officially meet you, Rex. From that moment on, something shifted. Rex began following Sarah around the camp, sitting near her during meals, positioning himself beside her during briefings. Marcus explained that this was unprecedented. Rex typically stayed glued to his side. He's chosen you, Marcus said one evening as they cleaned their weapons after a long day of drills. I've never seen him do that with anyone except me. Sarah felt honored but also puzzled. Why me? I think he recognizes a kindred spirit, Marcus replied. Someone who's been underestimated, who's had to prove themselves over and over. Rex was rejected twice before I found him. He knows what it's like to have something to prove. As the training exercises continued, Sarah and Marcus developed a strong working relationship. He taught her the subtle signals Rex used to communicate. The tilt of his ears when he detected explosives, the rigid stance when he sensed danger, the low growl that meant immediate threat. Every handler develops their own communication system with their K9, Marcus explained. But there's also a universal code we use, specific words and phrases that can control the dog even if something happens to the handler. Classified, known only to K9 handlers and special operations personnel. Makes sense, Sarah said. Redundancy in case you're incapacitated. Exactly. The code words have to be unusual, words you'd never use in normal conversation. That way there's no accidental triggering. Marcus paused, then added, I'm telling you this because you've earned Rex's trust. If something ever happens to me, you need to be able to work with him. Nothing's going to happen to you, Sarah said firmly. Marcus smiled sadly. We both know that's not a promise anyone can make in our line of work. The training exercises culminated in a massive joint operation involving multiple SEAL teams, Marine units, and Air Force support. It was the most complex simulation Sarah had ever participated in, a full-scale assault on a fortified compound with multiple objectives and countless variables. Sarah's team was assigned to a support role, providing security for the K9 units as they swept for explosives and tracked enemy positions. It was frustrating. She knew her team could handle more, but she kept her complaints to herself. The operation kicked off at 0300 hours. Sarah's squad moved through the darkness, Rex and Marcus at point. Everything was going according to plan until the sound of gunfire erupted from the main assault team's position. Contact, contact. Voices shouted over the radio. We've got heavy resistance, multiple casualties. Commander Hawkins's voice cut through the chaos. All units provide support to Alpha Team. Chen, I need your squad to breach from the west and draw fire. This was it, the moment Sarah had been waiting for. Copy that, Commander, moving to position. Master Chief Briggs's voice crackled over the radio. Negative, Lieutenant. Your orders are to maintain security. Let the real teams handle this. Sarah looked at her squad. They were ready, eager even. She looked at Marcus and Rex. The dog was alert, focused, reading the situation with those intelligent eyes. Master Chief, with respect, we have orders from the commander, Sarah said. I'm overriding those orders, Briggs snapped. You stay put, that's final. Sarah knew she was at a crossroads. Follow Briggs and watch as other teams took unnecessary risks, or trust her training and her team. Commander Hawkins's voice came through again. Master Chief, I gave Lieutenant Chen a direct order. She will execute it. Briggs, fall back and coordinate from command position. There was a long pause, then Briggs's furious response. Yes, sir. Sarah didn't waste another second. Move out. Her team flowed through the compound like water, using every bit of cover, communicating with hand signals and quick whispers. Marcus and Rex led the way, the dog's nose working constantly, alert for any threats. They reached their breach point and stacked up. Sarah gave the count 3, 2, 1, and they exploded into action. The room erupted in simulated gunfire. Sarah's team moved with precision, clearing corners, covering angles, working as one cohesive unit. And then in the chaos, something went wrong. Rex suddenly lunged forward, barking frantically. Marcus shouted, "IED! Everybody back!" They scattered just as the exercise umpires confirmed. Rex had detected a simulated explosive device that would have killed the entire team. It was a test within the test, and only Rex's keen senses had saved them. But in the confusion, a piece of equipment fell from the rafters, a heavy metal prop that shouldn't have been there. It struck Rex directly on his back leg. The dog yelped, a sound of pure pain that cut through all the simulated combat noise. Rex. Marcus dove for his partner, but Sarah was already there, pulling the equipment off the injured dog. "Exercise halt," Commander Hawkins ordered. "We have a real injury. Medical to position Echo 7 immediately." The veterinary team arrived within minutes, but Rex was in bad shape. His leg was clearly broken, possibly in multiple places. Worse, he was going into shock, his breathing rapid and shallow. "We need to sedate him to transport," the veterinary officer said, approaching with a syringe. Rex's response was immediate and violent. He snapped at the vet's hand, his teeth missing by inches. His eyes were wild with pain and fear. "Rex, stand down," Marcus ordered, but the dog wasn't listening. The pain had triggered something primal in him, an instinct to protect himself at all costs. "We can't treat him if he won't let us," the vet said, backing away. "We're going to have to use a catch pole." "No," Marcus said sharply. "He's already traumatized. That'll make it worse." "Then what do you suggest?" the vet asked. "He needs surgery and he needs it now. That leg could have nerve damage. Every minute we wait increases the risk of permanent injury." Marcus knelt beside Rex, speaking softly, trying every command in his arsenal. But Rex was too far gone, lost in his pain and fear. He wouldn't let anyone near him, not even Marcus. Sarah watched this scene, her heart breaking. Here was this magnificent animal who'd served his country for years, who'd saved countless lives, and he was suffering because he couldn't understand that they were trying to help. "Let me try," Sarah said quietly. "Lieutenant, with respect, if he won't respond to me, he won't respond to you," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "Maybe not," Sarah agreed, "but I have to try." She approached slowly, her body language relaxed and non-threatening. Rex watched her with those pain-filled eyes, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "Easy, boy," Sarah murmured. "I know it hurts. I know you're scared, but we're family now, remember. You trusted me before, trust me now." Rex's growl intensified, but Sarah kept moving, kept talking. She thought about everything Marcus had taught her, every signal, every nuance of canine communication. And then she remembered the secret code words that Marcus had mentioned. Classified commands that only handlers knew. She looked up at Marcus. "The code, tell me the code word for calm." Marcus hesitated. These words were classified for a reason, but as he looked at his beloved partner suffering, he made a decision. "Atlas," he whispered. "The word is Atlas." Sarah turned back to Rex. She got down on the ground, making herself small and unthreatening. "Atlas," she said clearly, firmly. "Atlas, Rex." The change was immediate. Rex's ears perked up, his growl ceased. It was a word he'd been conditioned to respond to, a word that meant safety, that meant friend. "Atlas," Sarah repeated, moving closer. "Good boy, Atlas." Rex lay down, his body still trembling with pain but no longer aggressive. Sarah reached out slowly and placed her hand on his head. The dog whimpered but didn't pull away. "Now," Sarah said to the vet, "do it now while he's calm." The vet moved quickly, administering the sedative. Within seconds, Rex's eyes began to droop. But even as he slipped into unconsciousness, his gaze remained fixed on Sarah, trusting her to keep him safe. "I've got you, buddy," Sarah whispered. "You're going to be okay." As the veterinary team carefully loaded Rex onto a stretcher, Commander Hawkins approached. His face was grave. "Lieutenant Chen, you used classified code words. How did you obtain that information?" Sarah stood at attention. "Petty Officer Webb shared them with me as part of my K-9 training, sir. He deemed it necessary for team readiness." Hawkins looked at Marcus, who stood ramrod straight, ready to accept whatever consequences came his way. "Is this true, Petty Officer?" "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. "I take full responsibility. Court-martial me if you must, but Lieutenant Chen deserves a commendation. She saved Rex's life." Master Chief Briggs, who'd been watching the whole scene, stepped forward. For once his face wasn't twisted in contempt. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "Commander requests permission to speak freely," Briggs said. "Granted," Hawkins replied. Briggs turned to Sarah. "I've been in this man's Navy for 23 years. I've seen a lot of soldiers come and go. Some have talent but no heart. Some have heart but no talent. Very few have both." He paused, and something like respect flickered in his eyes. "Lieutenant Chen, you have both. I was wrong about you. Dead wrong." The silence that followed was profound. The entire team had gathered to watch Rex's treatment, and now they all heard Briggs's words, words that many of them had never expected to hear. "You disobeyed me earlier," Briggs continued, "and you were right to do it. You trusted your instincts, your training, and most importantly, you trusted your team. That includes Rex. A leader who can't adapt, who can't recognize when the situation has changed. That's not a leader worth following." Sarah felt something tight in her chest loosen. This wasn't about vindication or being proven right. This was about being accepted finally as a member of the team. "Thank you, Master Chief," she said simply. "Don't thank me yet," Briggs replied, but there was almost a smile on his weathered face. "I'm still going to make your life hell in training, but now it'll be the same hell I give everyone else." As the veterinary team transported Rex to the medical facility, Sarah and Marcus followed. Commander Hawkins walked alongside them. "The both of you showed exceptional judgment under pressure," Hawkins said. "Webb, you violated protocol by sharing classified information, but you did it for the right reasons. Consider this an official reprimand and nothing more." "Thank you, sir," Marcus said, relief evident in his voice. "Chen," Hawkins continued, "you've proven yourself a dozen times over in the past 2 weeks, but what you did today goes beyond. You showed compassion, quick thinking, and courage. I'm formally recommending you for early integration into full team status." Sarah felt a wave of emotion but kept it controlled. "I appreciate that, sir." At the veterinary hospital, they learned that Rex would need surgery to repair his shattered leg. The breaks were severe, compound fractures that would require pins and months of rehabilitation. There was even a chance he might never return to active duty. Marcus took the news hard. He sat in the waiting room with his head in his hands, and Sarah sat beside him, offering silent support. "He's my whole world," Marcus said quietly. "People think that's strange, caring that much about a dog, but Rex isn't just a dog. He's my partner, my friend. He saved my life so many times, and I couldn't save him from a piece of falling equipment." "It wasn't your fault," Sarah said firmly. "That equipment shouldn't have been there. It was an accident." "He's 7 years old," Marcus continued. "That's old for a working dog. Even if he recovers, they might retire him, and if they do—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah understood. Military working dogs often struggled after retirement. They were warriors who'd spent their entire adult lives with a purpose, a mission. Taking that away could be devastating. "He's going to recover," Sarah said with conviction. "And whether he returns to active duty or not, he'll always be a warrior. That doesn't change." They sat in silence for a long time, waiting for news from the operating room. Other team members came and went, offering support. Even Briggs stopped by, standing awkwardly for a moment before gruffly saying, "The mutt's tougher than he looks. He'll pull through." Hours later, the veterinary surgeon emerged. "The surgery went well," she announced. "We were able to repair all the fractures. He's going to need extensive rehabilitation, but I'm cautiously optimistic about his recovery." Marcus sagged with relief. "Can I see him?" "He's still under anesthesia, but you can sit with him." In the recovery room, Rex lay on a padded table, his injured leg wrapped in a cast and bandages. He looked so small, so vulnerable, nothing like the fierce warrior who charged into danger without hesitation. Sarah and Marcus sat on either side of him. Marcus held the dog's paw gently, speaking softly. "You're going to be okay, buddy. You're going to be just fine." Sarah watched them, these two warriors bound by something deeper than words, and she thought about her own journey, the prejudice, the doubt, the constant need to prove herself. She'd done it. She'd earned her place on the team, but more than that, she'd earned something far more valuable, the respect of people like Marcus, who measured worth not by gender or appearance but by character and courage. As the night wore on and Rex began to stir from the anesthesia, his eyes opened slowly. First thing he saw was Marcus, and his tail made a weak attempt at wagging. Then his gaze shifted to Sarah, and in those intelligent eyes she saw recognition, trust, and gratitude. "Welcome back, warrior," Sarah whispered, but their relief would be short-lived, because outside the veterinary hospital, Master Chief Briggs was receiving a classified briefing that would change everything. A real mission, not a training exercise, an urgent deployment to hostile territory, and they were leaving in 48 hours. The briefing room was packed at 0600 hours the next morning. Sarah had barely slept, spending most of the night at Rex's side with Marcus. Now, standing among her team, she could feel the shift in atmosphere. This was different from training exercises. This had the weight of reality. Commander Hawkins stood at the front, his face grave. Behind him, classified satellite images lit up the screen. "Gentlemen and lady," he nodded to Sarah, "we have a situation. 4 days ago, a cargo plane went down in the mountains along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The manifest listed agricultural equipment, but intelligence indicates it was carrying something far more valuable." He clicked to the next slide, showing what looked like sealed containers. Biological samples, specifically, samples of a highly contagious viral strain being transported to a research facility for study. "The crash site is in territory controlled by a militant group, and we have reason to believe they've discovered the cargo." The room erupted in murmurs. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. A biological weapon in the hands of terrorists. This was nightmare scenario. "Our mission is to locate and secure those samples before they can be weaponized or sold," Hawkins continued. "The crash site is in mountainous terrain, altitude over 8,000 feet, limited visibility. This is a K-9-led operation." "We need Rex's tracking abilities," Marcus spoke up immediately. "Commander, Rex is recovering from surgery. He can't possibly deploy." "I'm aware of his condition, Petty Officer," Hawkins replied, "which is why I've already arranged for a replacement K-9 from another unit. You'll have 12 hours to establish basic rapport." 12 hours? Marcus's voice rose in disbelief. "Sir, it takes months to properly bond with a working dog. You can't just swap them out like equipment." "I understand your concerns," Hawkins said, his tone sympathetic but firm. "But this mission can't wait. The intelligence window is closing. If we don't move now, those samples could disappear forever." Master Chief Briggs cleared his throat. "Commander, permission to suggest an alternative." "Go ahead, Master Chief." Lieutenant Chen demonstrated an exceptional ability to work with Rex. What if she goes through an accelerated K-9 handler course? 24 hours of intensive training with the replacement dog. If anyone can make it work on a compressed timeline, she can. Sarah's eyes widened. This was unprecedented, Briggs advocating for her to take on more responsibility. She met his gaze and saw something she'd never seen before, genuine respect. Commander Hawkins considered this. "Petty Officer Webb, your assessment." Marcus looked at Sarah for a long moment. "Lieutenant Chen has a natural talent with K-9s. I've never seen Rex respond to anyone the way he responded to her. If this mission requires a K-9 handler and I can't go," he paused, the words clearly difficult, "she's the best alternative." "It's settled then," Hawkins decided. "Chen, you're now acting K-9 handler for this mission. Webb will oversee your crash course in K-9 operations. Master Chief Briggs will lead the ground team. You depart in 46 hours. After the briefing, Sarah found herself in the K-9 training facility, standing face to face with her new temporary partner. The dog was a German shepherd named Apollo, younger than Rex at 4 years old, with alert amber eyes and a coat like midnight. "Apollo is an explosives detection specialist," Marcus explained, watching as the dog sat perfectly still, assessing Sarah. He's highly trained but less experienced than Rex. His previous handler was killed in action 6 months ago, and he's been working with temporary handlers since then. How's he handling that? Sarah asked, her heart aching for the dog. Not well, Marcus admitted. Dogs grieve just like we do. He's been depressed, less responsive. The K9 unit was considering retiring him, but he's too young and too talented to give up on. He looked at Sarah. You're both starting fresh. Maybe that's a good thing. For the next 24 hours, Sarah did nothing but work with Apollo. Marcus guided her through the complex world of K9 operations, the hand signals, the verbal commands, the subtle body language that communicated volumes. A K9 handler isn't just a person with a dog, Marcus explained as they worked through detection drills. It's a partnership built on absolute trust. The dog has to believe you'll keep him safe, and you have to believe he'll do his job. That trust is everything. Sarah practiced the secret code words, the specialized commands that could control Apollo in emergency situations. She learned his preferences. He liked his right ear scratched, preferred liver treats over beef, and had a peculiar habit of tilting his head when he was concentrating hard. But most importantly, she learned his grief. Apollo carried the loss of his previous handler like a physical weight. When Sarah looked into his eyes, she saw a warrior who'd been abandoned by death, left without the person who'd given his life meaning. I know what it's like, Sarah told Apollo during a quiet moment in their training. She sat on the ground and the dog approached slowly, cautiously. I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong, like you have to prove yourself over and over, but you're not alone anymore. We're partners now. Apollo tilted his head, studying her. Then slowly, deliberately, he lay down beside her and put his head on her lap. It was a gesture of trust, of acceptance. Marcus, watching from across the training yard, felt tears prick his eyes. You've got the gift, he called out. I knew it from the first moment Rex chose you. 24 hours later, Sarah stood on the tarmac beside the transport plane, Apollo at her side. The dog wore his tactical vest, packed with equipment and protection. Sarah wore her full combat gear, weapons secured, mind focused. Master Chief Briggs approached, his expression serious. Chen, I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear me. This mission is dangerous. That's stating the obvious, but I want you to understand. There's a reason we need K9 support. The crash site is in Taliban-controlled territory. The area is likely booby-trapped. We're going in with minimal support because this needs to be quiet and fast. I understand, Master Chief, Sarah replied. Do you? Briggs stepped closer. Because I need to know you're ready, not just physically but mentally. You're going to see things that will stay with you forever. You're going to have to make decisions where there are no good options. And you're going to have to trust that dog with not just your life but all our lives. Sarah met his eyes steadily. I'm ready, Master Chief. Apollo and I were ready. Briggs nodded slowly. I believe you are. Just remember, out there's no room for hesitation. Trust your training, trust your instincts, and trust your partner. He gestured to Apollo. That dog has already lost one handler. Don't make him lose another. The flight to Afghanistan took 18 hours with refueling stops in Europe and the Middle East. During the journey, Sarah stayed close to Apollo, maintaining their bond, running through commands quietly. The other team members watched this with varying degrees of curiosity and respect. Corporal Dave Mitchell, a demolitions expert with a thick Boston accent, sat down beside Sarah during the flight. My brother works K9 with the police department back home, he said. He always says the dog knows stuff before you do, says it's like having a sixth sense on 4 legs. How long has he been doing it? Sarah asked. 8 years. His partner's a Belgian Malinois named Duke. Mitchell smiled. He loves that dog more than his own wife, not that he'd ever admit it. His smile faded. Lost his first K9 to a bomb 5 years ago. Took him a year to be willing to work with another dog. Said it was like losing a piece of his soul. Sarah looked down at Apollo, who was resting his head on her boots. How did he get through it? Therapy, time, and eventually accepting that the best way to honor his first partner was to save other lives with a new one. Mitchell shrugged. But he still has nightmares. Still blames himself, even though everyone told him there was nothing he could have done. The weight of that story settled on Sarah. She was responsible not just for this mission's success, but for Apollo's well-being, his life. It was a burden she'd accepted, but hearing it expressed in such stark terms made it real in a way it hadn't been before. They landed at a forward operating base in eastern Afghanistan just before dawn. The landscape was harsh and beautiful, jagged mountains rising against a sky just beginning to lighten, the air thin and cold at this altitude. Commander Hawkins met them on the ground. Latest intelligence confirms hostile activity near the crash site. We've got a narrow window, 6 hours until a larger Taliban force moves into the area. After that, extraction becomes significantly more complicated. The team moved out within the hour, traveling in armored vehicles until the terrain became too rough, then continuing on foot. Apollo led the way, his nose working constantly, his body language alert but controlled. Sarah had studied the mission briefing until she could recite it in her sleep. The cargo plane had crashed on a steep mountainside, breaking apart on impact. The biological samples were in a reinforced container in the cargo hold, but the crash had scattered debris across half a mile of rocky terrain. Their job was to locate the container, secure it, and get out before the Taliban realized what they were after. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the temperature dropped and the air grew thinner. Sarah's lungs burned with each breath, but she kept pace, Apollo moving steadily beside her. The dog showed no signs of fatigue, his focus absolute. 3 hours into the trek, Apollo suddenly stopped. His entire body went rigid, ears forward, nose pointing toward a cluster of rocks ahead. Sarah raised her fist, the signal to halt. The team froze instantly, weapons ready. "What's he got?" Briggs whispered, moving up beside Sarah. "I'm not sure," Sarah admitted. She watched Apollo carefully, reading his posture. This wasn't his explosives alert, this was something else. "Apollo, search." The dog moved forward cautiously, then sat down beside a large boulder. It was his passive alert, the signal that he'd found something significant. Sarah approached carefully, Briggs covering her. Behind the boulder, partially hidden by loose rocks, was a body. A man in traditional Afghan clothing, dead for perhaps 2 or 3 days based on the condition of the remains. "Local villager," Mitchell suggested. "No," Briggs said grimly, examining the body more closely. "Look at his boots. Military grade. And that's a satellite phone in his pocket." He carefully retrieved the phone, using a cloth to avoid contamination. This was a spotter, Taliban probably. He was watching the crash site. "Which means they know something's here worth watching," Sarah concluded. "And they know we're coming," Briggs added. He keyed his radio. "Commander, we've got confirmation of hostile surveillance. Recommend we accelerate timeline." Hawkins's response was immediate. "Agreed. You're authorized to go loud if necessary. Priority is securing those samples." They pressed on, moving faster now, knowing their window was closing. Apollo led them through treacherous terrain, around natural choke points that could have been ambush sites, his instincts guiding them toward the crash site. An hour later, they crested a ridge and saw it. The wreckage of the cargo plane spread across the mountainside like broken toys. The tail section had separated completely, lodged in a ravine. The fuselage was split open, its contents scattered by impact and scavengers. "There," Sarah said, pointing. At the far edge of the debris field, partially buried under twisted metal, was the reinforced container. Its exterior was scratched and dented but appeared intact. "Apollo, heel," Sarah commanded. She needed the dog close now. The crash site was exactly the kind of place where explosives would be planted. They moved down the slope in tactical formation, every sense alert for threats. The wreckage groaned in the wind, a haunting sound that seemed to mourn the crew who died in the crash. Halfway to the container, Apollo stopped again. This time his alert was unmistakable. He'd found explosives. "IED," Sarah called out. "Everyone freeze." Mitchell moved forward with his detection equipment. After a tense 2 minutes, he found it, a crude but effective device wired to a pressure plate. "This is fresh," he reported. "Placed within the last 12 hours. They're definitely expecting us." He carefully disarmed the device while the rest of the team maintained security. As he worked, Sarah noticed Apollo's attention shifting. The dog was looking toward a cluster of rocks above them, his ears pinned back slightly. "Master Chief," Sarah said quietly, "Apollo's sensing something. 12 o'clock high." Briggs looked where she indicated, his expression hardening. Could be another IED. Or could be. The first shot rang out before he could finish. Immediately, the team scattered for cover as automatic weapons fire tore through the air. The ambush was well planned, Taliban fighters positioned on the high ground, catching them in a deadly crossfire. "Contact rear," someone shouted. More fighters were emerging from concealment behind them, cutting off their retreat route. Sarah dove behind a section of airplane fuselage. Apollo pressed against her side. Bullets sparked off metal, the sound deafening. She returned fire, her training taking over, but her mind was racing. They were pinned down, outnumbered, and the container was still 50 yards away. "Chen," Briggs's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to know if there are more explosives between us and that container." Sarah looked at Apollo. The dog was frightened. She could see it in the way he trembled against her, but he was holding it together. "You can do this, buddy," she told him. "I need you to be brave." She turned to Briggs. "I'm going to send Apollo forward. He'll alert if there are more IEDs." "You can't control him from here," Briggs argued. "The noise, the confusion, he'll panic." "He won't," Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. "Apollo, search pattern Delta." It was an advanced command, one they'd practiced only a handful of times. The dog was supposed to move forward in a zigzag pattern, covering ground while checking for explosives, then return to the handler. Apollo hesitated, looking up at Sarah with those amber eyes. In that moment she saw his fear, his uncertainty, but she also saw his trust in her. "Apollo, search," she repeated firmly. The dog bolted from cover, moving with incredible speed despite the gunfire. Sarah's heart was in her throat as she watched him zigzag across the open ground, his nose working even as bullets kicked up dirt around him. 30 yards. Apollo suddenly sat, alert. Another IED. Mitchell marked the location with laser targeting. "Got it." Apollo continued his pattern. 40 yards, another alert. Another IED marked. "They've got the whole approach booby trapped," Mitchell reported. "It's a kill zone." Sarah watched Apollo complete his search pattern and start back toward her. The dog was halfway back when she saw a Taliban fighter emerge from behind the wreckage, RPG launcher on his shoulder, aiming directly at the container. If that rocket hit the container, if it breached the seals on those biological samples at this altitude in these wind conditions. Sarah didn't think. She broke from cover, sprinting toward the fighter. Apollo, seeing her move, changed direction and charged toward her, barking frantically. The fighter saw Sarah coming and swung the RPG toward her, but Apollo was faster. The dog launched himself at the man, 70 pounds of muscle and fury, hitting him at chest height. The RPG fired wild, the rocket screaming past Sarah's head to explode harmlessly against the mountainside. Sarah reached them as the fighter tried to bring his rifle around. She engaged him in close combat, brutal, efficient, the kind of fighting where hesitation meant death. Within seconds, the threat was neutralized, but more fighters were coming. The team was running out of ammunition, running out of time. "Master Chief," Sarah called. "Apollo's marked a safe route to the container. We need to move now." Briggs made a split-second decision. "Covering fire. Chen, Mitchell, get that container." The team opened up with everything they had, suppressing the Taliban positions. Sarah and Mitchell ran the zigzag pattern Apollo had marked, trusting the dog's nose to guide them safely through the minefield. They reached the container, and Mitchell immediately began working on the securing straps while Sarah provided cover. Apollo positioned himself between them and the nearest threats, his teeth bared, ready to defend his new pack. "Got it," Mitchell shouted, hauling the container onto his back. Moving, the extraction was a nightmare. They fought their way back up the slope, the container's weight slowing them down. Sarah stayed close to Mitchell, Apollo at her side, both of them protecting their precious cargo. A Taliban fighter appeared directly in their path. Sarah engaged him, but there was another behind him, and another. They were being swarmed. Apollo made his choice. The dog charged forward, hitting the nearest fighter low, taking him down. Then the second, then the third. He was buying them time, sacrificing himself to protect his handler and the mission. "Apollo, no," Sarah screamed. She couldn't lose another partner, she wouldn't. She fought with everything she had, moving toward Apollo. Briggs was beside her suddenly, his covering fire devastating. Together they cleared a path. Sarah reached Apollo just as the dog took a hit. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He yelped, a sound of pure pain that tore through Sarah's heart. "I've got you," Sarah said, scooping up the wounded dog even as she returned fire. Apollo was heavy, at least 70 pounds, but adrenaline gave her strength she didn't know she possessed. The extraction helicopter appeared over the ridge, its door gunners laying down suppressing fire. The team made their final push, Sarah carrying Apollo, Mitchell carrying the container, all of them wounded and exhausted but alive. They reached the extraction point and loaded onto the helicopter. As they lifted off, Sarah looked down at Apollo in her arms. The dog's eyes were half closed, his breathing rapid and shallow, blood soaked through his tactical vest. "Stay with me," Sarah pleaded. "You're going to be okay, just stay with me." Marcus was on the helicopter. He'd come along as medical support. Now he moved to Apollo's side, his hands already working. "The bullet's still in there. I need to stabilize him for the flight back." "Do it," Sarah said. "Whatever it takes." As Marcus worked, Commander Hawkins appeared beside them. His face was streaked with dirt and blood, but his eyes were clear. "The container is secure. Mission accomplished." He looked down at Apollo. "This dog saved us all. Chen, you both saved us all." The flight back to base was the longest of Sarah's life. She held Apollo the entire way, talking to him, keeping him conscious. Marcus worked miracles with limited supplies, stopping the bleeding, managing the pain, keeping the dog stable. When they finally touched down, a veterinary team was waiting. They rushed Apollo into surgery immediately. Sarah wanted to follow, but Commander Hawkins held her back. "Let them work, Lieutenant. You've done your part, more than your part." The debriefing took 3 hours. Sarah reported every detail of the mission, from Apollo's explosive detection to his heroic charge that had saved her life. Master Chief Briggs corroborated everything, adding his own assessment. "Lieutenant Chen demonstrated exceptional leadership and courage," Briggs stated formally. "Her handling of the K-9 asset was textbook perfect. I'm recommending her for immediate permanent assignment to SEAL Team 7 with a commendation for valor." Commander Hawkins nodded. "Agreed. Chen, you've proven yourself beyond any doubt. Welcome to the team officially." Sarah should have felt triumphant. She'd done it. She'd earned her place, proven all the doubters wrong. But all she could think about was Apollo fighting for his life in surgery. After the debriefing, she went to check on Rex. The older dog was awake, his leg in a cast but his eyes bright. When he saw Sarah, his tail wagged weakly. "Hey, warrior," Sarah said softly, sitting beside his recovery kennel. "Your temporary replacement is in surgery. He got shot saving the mission, saving me." Rex whined softly as if understanding. Sarah stroked his head gently. "I don't know how you handlers do it," she continued. "How you put them in danger knowing they might not come back. How do you live with that responsibility?" Marcus appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted, emotionally drained. "You live with it because you know they're doing what they were born to do. These dogs aren't pets, Sarah. They're warriors. And like any warrior, they choose to serve." "Apollo didn't choose to get shot," Sarah said bitterly. "No," Marcus agreed, sitting down beside her. "But he chose to protect you. That's what partners do." He paused. "The vet just called. Apollo made it through surgery. The bullet missed all the vital organs. He's going to recover." Sarah felt tears stream down her face, tears of relief, exhaustion, and emotion she'd been holding back for weeks. "Thank God." "There's more," Marcus continued. "The K-9 unit wants you to be Apollo's permanent handler, if you're willing." Sarah looked up at him in shock. "What about my position with the SEAL team?" "You'd be both. K-9 handler and SEAL operator. It's rare but not unprecedented. You've proven you can do it." Marcus smiled. "Besides, Apollo's already bonded with you. Separating you two now would be cruel to him, and probably to you too." Sarah looked at Rex, then thought about Apollo recovering from surgery. 2 warriors who'd chosen to trust her, to follow her into danger. "I'm willing," she said. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in the California sunshine, Apollo at her side. The dog's shoulder was healed, though he'd carry a scar for the rest of his life. A badge of honor, the vet had called it. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. Commander Hawkins pinned a commendation medal on Sarah's uniform, and Apollo received a special K-9 Valor Award, a medal that would be attached to his tactical vest for the rest of his career. "Lieutenant Sarah Chen." Hawkins announced to the assembled team. "You came to us with something to prove. But what you've shown us is that courage, skill, and leadership have nothing to do with gender and everything to do with character. You've earned your place among us not by being like us, but by being yourself, brave, compassionate, and uncompromising in your dedication to the mission and your team." The team applauded. Even the old-timers, the skeptics, were clapping genuinely. Master Chief Briggs stepped forward and offered his hand. "Chen, I was wrong about you from day one," he said. "I let my prejudices blind me to what was right in front of me, a damn good soldier and an even better person. I'm honored to serve alongside you." Sarah shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, Master Chief. That means more than you know." After the ceremony, as the team gathered for an informal celebration, Marcus approached with Rex walking slowly beside him on a leash. The older dog's cast was off, and though he was still building strength, he was healing well. "Thought these two warriors should meet properly," Marcus said. Sarah knelt down and both dogs approached. Rex sniffed Apollo carefully, the older dog assessing the younger. Then, in a gesture that made Sarah's throat tight, Rex touched his nose to Apollo's injured shoulder, a canine acknowledgement of shared sacrifice. Apollo's tail wagged, and the two dogs sat side by side, looking up at Sarah and Marcus with those intelligent eyes. "They know," Marcus said softly. "They know they're part of something bigger than themselves." That evening, Sarah sat on the beach near the base, Apollo lying beside her with his head on her lap. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She thought about her journey, from the small town in Wyoming where no one believed in her, through the brutal training where she'd been mocked and underestimated, to this moment where she'd finally found where she belonged. But more than that, she thought about the connections she'd forged. With Marcus, who'd taught her that strength comes in many forms. With Briggs, who'd learned that admitting you're wrong takes more courage than never changing your mind. With Apollo, who'd shown her that trust and loyalty transcend species and circumstance. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her mother. "Saw the news about your commendation. Your father and I are so proud. You've always been our warrior even when others couldn't see it." Sarah smiled, stroking Apollo's fur. The dog looked up at her with absolute devotion, absolute trust. "We did it, buddy," she whispered. "We proved them all wrong, not by being what they expected, but by being exactly who we are." Apollo's tail thumped against the sand. In the distance, she could hear the sound of her team's laughter, Marcus's voice rising above the others as he told some story. These were her brothers now, her family forged not by blood but by shared danger and mutual respect. 3 months later, Sarah and Apollo deployed again, this time as the primary K-9 team for a high-value target extraction in Syria. The mission was successful, thanks in large part to Apollo's detection abilities and Sarah's tactical decisions. When they returned, there was a surprise waiting. The K-9 training facility wanted Sarah to help develop a new program for integrating more handlers into special operations units. They specifically wanted her to help identify and train soldiers who had the special gift, the ability to truly partner with these remarkable dogs. "You've proven it can be done," the program director explained. "Now we need you to show others how." Sarah accepted, understanding that this was another way she could serve. Apollo would still deploy with her, but between missions, they'd work with new handlers, teaching them what Marcus had taught her, that the bond between handler and K-9 was sacred, built on trust, respect, and mutual dedication to something greater than themselves. A year after that first disastrous briefing where Master Chief Briggs had questioned her worth, Sarah stood in front of a new class of potential K-9 handlers. Apollo sat beside her, older now, with several more scars to add to his collection, each one a story of courage and survival. "Some of you are here because you love dogs," Sarah began. "That's a good start, but it's not enough. These aren't pets. They're warriors with 4 legs instead of 2. They'll follow you into hell without hesitation, which means you need to be worthy of that trust." She looked at the diverse group before her, men and women of different backgrounds, all eager to prove themselves. She saw herself in their faces, that hunger to belong, to contribute, to matter. "You're going to be judged," Sarah continued. "Some people will doubt you can do this job. They'll find reasons why you don't fit their image of what a handler should be. You can either waste energy fighting those perceptions, or you can pour that energy into being so damn good that the doubts become irrelevant. Apollo stood and walked to the front of the room, sitting beside Sarah in perfect parade rest. His bearing was proud, his eyes alert. He was a warrior in every sense of the word. "This dog saved my life," Sarah said, her hand resting on Apollo's head. "More than once. But more importantly, he taught me what real courage looks like. It's not about never being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing your duty anyway. It's about protecting your pack even when it costs you everything." She paused, looking at each student in turn. "If you can learn that lesson, if you can build that bond, then you'll be more than a handler. You'll be a partner to one of the most remarkable creatures on Earth. You'll be part of something that transcends rank, gender, or any other label people try to put on you." Apollo's tail wagged once, a slow, deliberate acknowledgement. "Welcome to K9 Operation," Sarah concluded. "Let's get to work." As the students filed out to meet their potential K9 partners, Marcus approached. Rex was with him, fully recovered now and serving as a demonstration dog for the training program. "You've come a long way," Marcus observed. Sarah smiled. "We both have, me, Apollo, even Briggs in his own way." "That's the thing about journeys," Marcus said. "They change everyone involved. You came here trying to prove you belonged. But what you really did was show us that belonging isn't about fitting in, it's about being true to yourself and excellent at your job." They stood together, watching the new students interact nervously with the dogs. Some were natural, moving with confidence and calm. Others were uncertain, trying too hard or not enough. It would take weeks to see who had the gift and who didn't. "Think any of them have what it takes?" Sarah asked. "Some will," Marcus replied. "Not all, but some. And the ones who make it will be better handlers because you're teaching them. You're giving them something I couldn't, the perspective of someone who had to fight for every inch of ground, who never took this privilege for granted." Sarah looked down at Apollo, who was watching the students with the patience of a veteran. He'd been through so much, lost so much, but he'd never lost his spirit, his willingness to serve. "We're going to deploy again soon, aren't we?" Sarah asked. She could always sense when a mission was coming. 2 weeks, Marcus confirmed. "High-altitude extraction in the Hindu Kush. They're requesting you and Apollo specifically." "Good," Sarah said simply. "We're ready." And they were. Sarah had learned that being ready wasn't about being fearless. It was about knowing your fears, acknowledging them, and choosing to act anyway. It was about trusting your training, your team, and the remarkable four-legged warrior at your side. As the sun set over the training facility, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. She'd fought so hard to get here, endured so much doubt and discrimination. But she'd never given up, never compromised who she was. And in the end, that persistence had paid off, not just for her, but for everyone who came after. She was opening doors, creating pathways, showing that excellence knows no gender, no stereotype, no limitation except the ones we accept for ourselves. Apollo leaned against her leg, a gesture of affection and trust that never failed to move her. She scratched his scarred shoulder gently. "Ready for the next adventure, buddy?" she asked. Apollo's tail wagged, his eyes bright with anticipation. He was always ready, ready to serve, ready to protect, ready to follow this human he'd chosen to trust with his life. Together, they walked back toward the barracks as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Behind them, Rex and Marcus followed, two other warriors bound by the same unbreakable bond. In the distance, they could hear Master Chief Briggs barking orders at a training unit. His voice was gruff, demanding, accepting no excuses. But when he saw Sarah and Apollo approaching, he paused and gave them a nod of respect, the kind of acknowledgement one warrior gives to another. Sarah returned the nod. Words weren't necessary. They understood each other now, forged by fire and mutual respect. As she entered the barracks, her phone buzzed with a message from Commander Hawkins. "Mission briefing 0600. Bring Apollo, this one's important." Sarah smiled. They were all important. Every mission, every moment, every chance to serve alongside the bravest souls she'd ever known, both human and canine. She looked down at Apollo, who was settling into his bed, his body relaxed but his eyes still watchful. Even in rest, he was a guardian, a protector. "Get some sleep, warrior," Sarah said softly. "Tomorrow we go to work." Apollo's tail thumped twice against his bed, then he closed his eyes, trusting Sarah to watch over him as he watched over her. And in that moment, Sarah Chen, the girl from Wyoming who nobody believed in, the woman who'd fought every step of the way to earn her place, finally understood what she'd been searching for all along. She wasn't trying to prove she belonged. She'd been trying to find her pack, her purpose, her true self. And with Apollo by her side and a team that had finally learned to see her for who she truly was, she'd found all three. The journey wasn't over. There would be more missions, more challenges, more moments of doubt and danger. But she would face them all with courage, compassion, and the unwavering loyalty of a four-legged warrior who'd chosen her as his own. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were exactly where they belonged. The end.